Hey, welcome to my daily video. This is a pre-recorded video, so I'll just get into it now. I normally do lives, but I'm trying to put everything onto my YouTube page. So welcome to my Edible Planet video. I've been making Edible Planet videos and stories in the past week after doing a little poll on, I guess both my pages, who is interested in three of my stories the most, which is the story that's most compelling. And it was like hands down Edible Planet. So I have probably, I don't know, like 100 different stories that I've been writing about in the last 6 or 7 years. And I just use them as the title on my posts, whether it's Wealth Justice or Supermodel, 100 Million Moms. Vote Canada is a series I'm writing now about expat voting. And so if you go into my search bar on Facebook, and I don't know so much about Instagram because it's less, I like the Instagram software less. The Facebook software is just unbelievable. So if you go into the Facebook search, you can pretty much search anything on my page and you will find there must be like 20,000 stories on my Facebook page. It's a monster. My Facebook page is a total monster. And I design it that way. I curate it that way. So there are stories there for everybody about like mostly Canadian politics and the fraud and the corruption that we've been forced to endure. But anything, so anything you want, it's an evidence bundle. Everything is there, like from the beginning of 2020 until today. So I put it there. I do that page for everybody to use the information for free. And if you value my work, just, comment, share, or if you want to buy something from my website, that's always great too, which is sbstelevision.com. I'll drop the link. Okay, so today's video is mostly about Edible Planet. So I'm writing stories this week about a healing town, a biome, a food region in and around Sedona, Arizona. This is sort of like north central Arizona, I guess, Sedona. I don't know, population like 10 or 15,000 people. And you may know Sedona as a healing town. And so the biome, which is kind of a combination of climate and flora and fauna and soil and temperatures and precipitation and all that, the whole food growing region, like the science name would be biome. And I think we probably have about 8 or 9 different biomes around the world, maybe many more, but the big ones, right? Like Arctic, that's a biome. In Canada, we have the Boreal, right? The Boreal biome and forest, right? Sort of across the middle of Canada. So the biome of this part of Arizona and northern, I guess it goes around the Central Valley of California, big growing area, is called Chaparral. And the Chaparral biome is like my favorite biome to live in. So I've lived in it in California. I used to live in California. I've lived in it in Cape Town. Southern Mediterranean, where I am here now, so that's southern Spain, Italy. It's a hot, dry region, hot, dry biome, and it's often called the Mediterranean climate. So if you are someone that loves the Mediterranean climate, then you will like these stories about Sedona. These are fauna and flora and food and even humans, whatever, who can exist and who have created lives that exist with less rainfall. This is a dry area, and it's one of the reasons why people love it, right? And because of the healing in the sun. So look for those stories: Edible Planet, Chaparral, the California biome. It does extend up into Arizona. I think it's just California and Arizona. I'll circle it on a map. But it's a lovely kind of a climate. Lots of Canadians also go there regularly or have property, say, in this area because they just love it, right? The desert, Palm Springs, and then obviously parts of Arizona. Or Phoenix, if you know Phoenix, Arizona. That's cool, right? I've been there too. Stayed at the Biltmore Hotel. Okay, so somebody asked me in the States, so I'm writing stories about, Edible Planet stories about California and whatnot, because an American television producer contacted me, and one of their questions is, well, what's the format of the show? And so I have 2 different ideas for a format, and I haven't said it yet, because when in the development process, you just want to stay open to just a new idea and potentially a third format. So the first format that I started with, which is a winning format, you can always make a show work with this kind of format, is it's hosted. It's hosted, and that talent becomes a big part of the investment of the brand. And so Anthony Bourdain is kind of my main inspiration around that. Jamie Oliver, Gordon Ramsay, lots of women who are doing these kinds of shows. That wonderful interior designer, what's her name? Kelly Worstall. She doesn't do food, but a hosted show. And so the the personality and the talent becomes a big part of the success of the show. So that's how I started. I thought, well, I'll just do that kind of a show, and I'll be a host. I'll be the first host, maybe not the eventual host, but I'll just host it because I know what the Edible Planet story is. The other format, and I would love to have hosts from all over the world, right? Not one host that goes all over the world, but hosts in all the different regions of the stories. That would be a great way to do it. Another type of format is more like the Chef's Table format, where the subjects of the show are given scripted content to narrate. So if you've seen Chef's Table, it's really, really compelling. It's heavier on the audio recording and working with the subject matter to make sure they can deliver as talent, because they're not really supposed to be TV and video talent, right? They're food people. But it's a really compelling format. Chef's Table, I think, is one of the most beautiful series made. And then the third format that I'm looking at is just fuck whatever. I don't know yet, something totally new and crazy. And so Edible Planet is designed to be like tech and crypto and very disruptive. So I want to stay very open to the idea that a whole other format could ensue. It may have me on camera in the beginning because I'm free, come with the show, and just to communicate any kind of a story. But that was one of the questions from California. What's the format? And then I came across another fantastic plant that could grow there, but I think it needs more precipitation, and that is the iboga plant. So I've heard about this process, which is it's a hallucinogenic phytochemical herbal remedy, and a lot of it comes from Central Africa, like Angola, and these kind of dry/wet growing areas, and that's where the iboga plant thrives. But I think you could probably grow this thing in a bunch of different places, and maybe even in the Chaparral biome. It just needs more water, which you could create, right? So check out the iboga plant and the phytochemicals that are really impactful on lessening depression and addiction. Yeah. And so you can buy it as supplements. Maybe you can smoke it. I don't know if you ingest it. It is edible. So it's a part of my story of Edible Planet. And that's one of the varieties of stories that I'm creating to build out the brand and the platform and to attract advertisers. So I'm also writing some stories about kitchen, what are they called? Not ingredients, but materials, building and design and construction materials for kitchens in the Chaparral region. Like what is abundant, what is typical. And my first thought was, is anybody making kitchens using the red rock surface? So the same way that you would have marble counters, right? The gray or white marble or whatever, if you lived in an area where that marble is, quarried and is mined. Is red rock a part of kitchen design or sinks? That would be really cool to have a red rock kitchen sink, right? Because it would work. And there's this wonderful kids area. My children were watching a video about me called the Rock Slide. I think it's in Sedona. It's called Rock Slide. And they were like, can we go there? And you just slide on all these red rocks into the water. It looks really natural. So that's a part of the Edible Planet stories, is to kind of curate a whole collection of stories about one region, one sort of biome that has all these other pieces like design, packaging, thought leaders. It's not so much about recipes in restaurants and stuff. It's about the industry of food and the supply chain. Who's growing, who's making, who's innovating, who's solving problems, and how does this whole food culture in this region, how does it thrive and build and live together? Because food cultures are very different around the world. So another one that I wrote stories about is it's near the Khyber Pass. It's part of Afghanistan. They've got tons of walnuts and apples, and they've got orchards, and it's like a very unique food culture in that biome. So I guess orchards, that would be a certain biome, like the Okanagan. I don't know what that's called. If you've ever been to Lillooet, north of Whistler, that's a whole other really small microbiome. It's high desert. Lillooet is high desert. And I had never been there before until 2020, I guess, or 2021. And I was like, what the hell is going on in Lillooet? It's beautiful, high desert, not just desert like California, but high desert, right? So that's Edible Planet. And I may be looking at some AI tools to market Edible Planet and to attract some brand partners. That'd be really cool. It kind of scares me. I don't know anything about AI. Okay, so that is Edible Planet. A couple of other stories. I heard about this guy who bought the LA Times about 5 or 6 years ago. He is a Chinese South African billionaire doctor scientist, I guess, and a doctor, who's created incredible anti-cancer, probably ingested, maybe injectable drugs. And he was just interviewed by Tucker. And this guy's brilliant. You got to listen to these kind of podcasts. So he has this product that I believe is a subcutaneous injection. I don't know if he calls it a vaccine or not, but he calls it the Bioshield. And apparently you inject this thing and it's just like this protective shield for your whole body, and it throws your body into a state where it fights and beats cancer. And he's having these huge successes with it, going through the regulatory process, whatever. And he talks about all of the COVID vaccines being so injurious, and they're the cause of the massive rise of cancer, especially in children. So check out him, Patrick. I think his name is Sun Xing, and I'll share it. It's a double last name. He's from South Africa, Chinese, lives in LA. And his product is called the Bioshield, an anti-cancer injectable remedy or drug or whatever he calls it. Okay, I guess that's it. One more story. So finally, Vote Canada. I am an expat. I've mostly lived as an expat outside the borders of our country as an adult. So if you don't know that word, expatriate, it means like outside the nation, right? Expatriate. So I'm an expat. Wherever I go, I'm like an expat. And wherever I live. My children are expatriate as well, although they're British, so I guess they're not really expatriate. But I'm usually living in an expatriate lifestyle, and I have never voted outside the borders. Just, I don't know, traveling, whatever. Disengaged in terms of the vote, like a lot of Canadians. So I decided to vote in this election, and so I'm writing Vote Canada stories. So these are the 4 steps to vote if you are expat. This is how you expat vote. And I'll also write stories if you're going to vote inside Canada. Not that you need me to help you, but a lot of people just don't bother, right? So the main thing is you have to identify your riding. So if you're inside Canada, you will know what your riding is. You got to find out who your member of parliament is if you don't know. That's your federal representative. It's either going to be Liberal or NDP, probably not Green, because I don't know. I've got like 3 seats or something. Conservative. And if you're in Quebec, obviously Bloc. So who are the candidates running to be the member of parliament in your riding? So if you're going to vote Conservative, like I think most people will, you got to identify, okay, who is the Conservative candidate in your riding? There's 338 ridings. Get to know their name. You could go and listen to them. If you just want to vote Conservative because then it doesn't really matter, what their agenda is. It's mostly a Conservative agenda. So I've identified the Conservative candidate in my riding that I used to live in, which is West Point Grey. And that's where Trudeau used to teach. That's where his school was. I live right by the school where that whole scandal happened. Oh my God. And this is where all the Chinese money laundering is happening and stuff. It's a very rich neighborhood. So the guy, I can't remember his name now, but I'll share it. He's like the coolest guy in the neighborhood. He used to run the local movie theater, and just like stellar guy. A guy obviously who has decided to get into politics because he's done with all the whatever. So I will be casting my ballot for him because that was my last riding that I lived in, all the way here from England, which will be great. So the 4 steps for me are, I have to get on an international registrar of voters. And I don't have a lot of time. I'm not convinced I'm going to be able to do this, which is the problem with the snap election. Because for an expat, I think you kind of need an 8 to 12 week cycle if you've not registered before. I should have registered 20 years ago. Anyway, I've got to get on the International Registrar of Canadian Voters. Okay, so let's assume that takes a day. Like maybe I can do that through the website and it works. So then I become registered. That's step 1. Step 2 is Canada's going to mail me a ballot to my home in England. So that's going to take at least 7 days, maybe longer. Then I vote. I open up the ballot. I vote, get it back in the mail. I can do that within a day. And then the physical mail-in ballot has to get back to Elections Canada. So that's another 7 days. So this is like 20 working days, and that's pretty much all I have. I think I have 22 or 23 working days now. So I'm not convinced I'm going to be able to turn it around that quickly, but those are the steps. So get on the Register of International Voters as a Canadian, living as an expatriate, get them to approve you with your identity or whatever and your address, receive the mail-in ballot, vote, get it back in the mail as fast as you can, and hopefully your vote will count. And so that's quite a bit of effort, right? But fair enough. If you don't want to be governed by dictators, you've got to participate in democracy. So please spread the word, because there are 2 million Canadians who live outside Canada. right? 2 million of us. So even if just 50,000 of us were able to vote, or 200,000 of us were able to vote, this will have impact. And I bet you almost every person living outside Canada is going to vote Conservative, because that's why we're not in Canada, right? Because we don't like what's going on, especially the new batch of people that moved to Mexico. So if you're connected to Paul Revere and everything that's going on, spread the word around expat voting, how to vote as an expatriate. I believe that you have to do it with a physical mail-in ballot. I don't think there's any way of digitally voting. So spread that word. That's my Vote Canada stories. And next week I'll do some more stories about just voting in general for some people. You know, some people don't even know what a member of parliament is. They don't even know who theirs is. You obviously have to be registered. So when you show up to the voting station, you will be ticked off and your name will be there. And this is probably one of the reasons why a lot of people don't vote, right? They're like, oh, whatever. Like, is my vote really going to count? Is this one more person? Yeah, but say like 1 million people thought that. 1 million people will be thinking that. What's the point? Does my vote really count? Even me, I'm like, well, I'm over in England. Like, is my vote really going to count? And so it's easy to opt out. And so then you opt out of having a say in terms of how you're governed. And then whatever jackboot's going to come along to kick you in the head and wreck your life, then you deserve it if you don't vote, right? We all need to vote. And voting, I really feel passionately about this. Voting needs to be a way more aspirational, interesting, normal part of Canadian life. We have to bring it back again, because it doesn't have to take very long. It's not very complicated. It's very empowering, and it just become a part of daily life again, right? The same way we prioritize things like screens or exercise or whatever. Vote, make it a priority, right? Be engaged, vote, have your say. I was going to say something that I forgot that was important. Anyway, I'll do a couple more Vote Canada stories over the next few weeks, but my stories will particularly be for expats. Okay, so get off your ass, get off of the beach in Mexico, whatever you're doing. Get Elections Canada to mail you your mail-in ballot. Vote, get it back in the mail, and get it over to Elections Canada so your vote will count. Okay, I think that's it. It's an Edible Planet video. I'm going to be writing stories about the what's it called again? Chaparral biome around the Central Valley, Northern California, parts of Arizona, the food region and the people and the products and the lifestyle. That's what Edible Planet is all about, connecting people to, you know, better, more regenerative, cleaner lifestyle, fair trade kind of food systems, and doing that through video story as a series and a website and content. If you know anybody who's interested in advertising with Edible Planet, it's a little bit too early, but you never know. I'm building a website. Anybody who wants their brand associated with better food and better food video, particularly maybe people who want to advertise in the California market, because I will be doing some marketing there with some AI tools. It could be really cool. And check out Bioshield by Dr. Patrick Soon-Ching, who owns the LA, what did he buy? The LA Post or the LA Times? Can't remember which one. Anyways, billionaire, bought the newspaper. He bought it for really interesting reasons. He's committed to natural health, and he wanted to own the newspaper in order for people. He did it as like public service. It's like the way Elon bought Twitter. He paid $500 million for this newspaper. He had 2 days to decide, and he bought it as a way to bring back the public square, to do a service to people who we all really deserve to have media, so we're educated without bias. Okay, thanks for watching. Please share the video. Have a great day. If you would like to learn more about my projects, you can go to my website. You can buy stuff there to support my work. It's sbstelevision.com. Thanks. Bye.